one. Let's kick it.
Hey!
It's Tuesday and it's a dungeon cooldown. It's your boy MPB and Ron Ogden. Woo!
Just call me Ron Ogden?
Yeah, it rhymed with cooldown, Ron. Deal with it.
No. I'm not upset. I am not upset in any way, shape, or form.
Don't mess up my flow.
No. I'm from now on going to be called DJ Rogdown. Like
DJ Rogdown.
DJ Rogdown.
Whoop whoop. Dungeon Speedrun says, oddly, I have that tape sitting beside me. Wait, you have a Vanilla Ice tape sitting beside you at that moment? That's fantastic.
Wow,
I know Judd
awesome.
says these men are way too happy right now. Hey, it's
I'm
2023, Idaho, Judd. We're doing our best. Oh, buddy.
That better?
Yeah. Do you like this?
You like this?
Aw, thanks you. It's so good to see you, friends. Not a crit fail. City Racing Girl. Daria, not Daria. Wait. So
Ooh.
Daria, not Daria.
Daria?
Well, it's two eyes. Daria.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, you don't roll the I. You don't roll. Can you roll an I?
I don't know. I mean,
Daria.
it sounds fancy. Why not?
Daria.
Not Daria.
I like that. We're going to go with that. I'm going to try to call you that every time from now on.
This cooldown is going to be a lot of fun.
Wait,
already.
Can you tell we're in a mood, friends?
Definitely in a mood.
Woo-woo!
Definitely.
Yes, you got us, buddies. It's good to see you. I felt that I needed to clarify that I am not the cartoon character, says Daria. I understand that. That's cool. You know, you can be or not. You seem much more chipper than the cartoon character. I'll see that. Notably not an MTV cartoon. It's true enough, Franz. It's so good to see you. It's the Dungeon Cooldown here on a Tuesday. Yeah. We are back tomorrow night with episode 2 of chapter 3 of the Stormborn Saga. You know, Ron, I had to get you in front of the people to answer for your crimes.
Oh, God. I'm sure you did, my friend. I'm sure you did.
I'm kidding.
So many crimes were committed. And if Otto is to be heard at all, more crimes will be happening.
Oh,
so,
yes. I mean, always. Always.
Yes, but this is, I've had this conversation with Serena, and I love that this is one of the first things. So I try to meet up with or have an extended conversation with each.
Very communicative. Yes.
Yeah, I try to be, especially in the live space like this, because so much of this is not just home game where like if we make a mess up, it's just a conversation we have afterwards.
Right.
This one is like, no, this is for show and people are going to watch this, and so we need to be sure that things are happening. That doesn't mean that I won't, throw, like for example, if you go and look at the conversation between Zezaraz and all of you,
Ooh.
and he basically outs.
Yeah.
He outs Yuri.
He outed
that
Yuri?
entity outed Yuri. Yeah.
And Failshin outed. Well, Failshin had the Cristobal Medulon reveal, which was news to everybody, as far as I know. Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's some of that is like trying to think on what, like, if you see all permutations of all times all at the same time.
Yeah. I
can't really actively reflect what some being that has that ability is capable of, but I can give them like, oh, they might have this ultimate power, but that doesn't mean they're not flawed. And so I thought one of the things of someone who, or a being that could see
keep
all
it all
times,
straight,
to keep it all straight,
yeah,
just is show yourself to me, that kind of stuff, and it happens. And that was not planned in any way, shape, or form. It was me improvising response to Josephine's character's conversation with Zezaraz at that moment. So it was just sort of, it's kind of weird to like watch those things back, and I have to watch them back to prepare for the next episodes, obviously. But like watching those back, I don't actively recall those moments. You know what I mean? Have you ever had that?
Oh
Like when
yeah,
you
100%. And
yeah, I think we've talked about this before.
well, and that was why why the last time I did a dungeon rewatch, which people seem to really enjoy the dungeon rewatches.
Oh, yeah.
We should do more of them soon. Yay!
We should.
Give us a
Yeah.
yay or nay in chat. The response on the Discord the last time we did one, people really seem to like it. So especially episodes like that with Zozezaraz. Yay! Hooray! Okay, good. Especially that conversation with Zozezaraz, it was so chock full of stuff where it was just like, and in a kind of chaotic way, and you were doing your best and you did a fantastic job, but literally like it was partially our fault because we kept getting off track with you and going like, wait, let's go down that rabbit hole for a second.
Let's go that rabbit hole.
And
right. And I'm just going where you guys want to go. Right. Like that's what I'm trying to do.
And it was so the reveals are in the weirdest order and in the strangest like, wait, what? You know, and you're like, yeah, and that felt very real to me in a way of like, wait, what? Yeah.
And a lot of that was because I knew going in that you were going to have a conversation with an all-knowing being. Well, I say all-knowing. There's clearly some gaps in his in their understanding.
But calling someone mostly knowing isn't really very impressive.
right. Omni not present because that means everywhere. Omniscient.
Yes.
Omniscient, but also with gaps.
Right.
That also makes him a little relatable, right?
Sure,
like,
of course.
This all-knowing thing suddenly can't know something. That would be probably very vexing and make that being full of anxiety if they were imperfect like us. You know what I mean? Like as a relation. That's kind of how I sort of attribute it. But yeah, like, and I even mentioned it at the end of there, like trying to play an all-knowing being, but also not give away everything.
Yes.
Is wow.
Not a crit fail calls it omniscient-ish. Say that 5 times.
Yeah, omniscient-ish.
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 Yeah, it's true that like, well, and I actually liked, again, going back to, you know, if there is such a thing as in realism in a conversation like that, when there is a being who can see all timelines, all permutations, of course it's gonna be all scattered and, you know, like, this over here, that over there.
Exactly.
You know, he's probably not gonna have a PowerPoint presentation of it all.
And not only that, their understanding of existence is not one that is like ours, where we are subjected to that greater element, right? We are third dimensional beings living in a fourth dimensional reality because time is a thing. So every instant, right? That's one of the things that I love, this kind of thought process, and I have going through it a lot, trying to be like, okay, I need to keep this straight for human. How do I, we look at things sequentially, there's the word, sequentially, linearly, but like they say, they call the moment present, but you never reach the present.
Okay.
Right? Like every moment that when you're in the present, it's already past.
Right. You know what I immediately thought of is that scene from Spaceballs.
What's that?
Where they're like, when will then be now? Soon.
Now.
Wait,
soon.
What happened to now? We just missed it.
We just missed it. But that's it. Like that's the first.
That is actually
so crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, that you bring that up. That's the first time in my life that I even thought about the concept, because I watched that as a young age and was like, actually, now that they're making a joke about that, like, yeah, like,
yeah, no, it's
wow.
It's one of those jokes that you have to have thought about this a lot to even like really kind of make that joke, and it shows you that Mel Brooks is much smarter than he will ever let on.
And the comedic timing of that particular scene,
right?
Which it's about timing, and that's the part that I love. It's so like meta in its own, and it was in like the early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s.
Late 80s.
Like,
Spaceballs was like,
did it come late 80s?
Or mid-late 80s. Mid-late 80s. Yeah.
But that's just like,
I may have even seen Spaceballs in the theater. I was probably a little too young. But yeah.
Anyway, just like that kind of concept, I constantly am like thinking about, right? Especially, and so much of this was also trying to pay it forward to the players for existing in a reality where there was so little information for so long.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Like, that's true. You kept us in the dark for a bit, but no, in a fascinating way. And I'm not saying, but
yeah. And in a way that was sort of on purpose, right? Like
Right.
the gods could not communicate to you in the way that
Right.
that you eventually found out. But it's one of those things where, and it'll probably feel like that again. Like now that you're back in reality, or in the whatever we want to call it, Mekatos, the current permutation, your permutation. It's going to happen again. He's already identified that like there's not going to be much communication once you're back here. Like you're going to have to work on, and in fact, probably best that he doesn't have any. Or I keep saying they don't have any information.
All pronouns work for Zezeras, I assume.
Oh yeah, right.
Yes.
All.
Daria says, but we're down to the last timeline, so they should be able to keep this one straight.
Well, you would think so. Now, the last timeline doesn't mean like it is the only one. It means it's the last one that's left once all time has, all other permutations have sort of fizzled out and fired away. But you still have an active agent that is working against you, that has access to even the last timeline.
Right.
So that's the part that you got to start to like. There are set things which should hopefully indicate to you that if you find out specific things in the timeline you're in that are different than you remember, then you know for a fact that's probably because of the feted father, right? Like that's something the feted father made that change.
Yeah.
I hoped you had sort of already kind of figured that out, but here I'm giving it to you specifically.
No, for sure. And I said this on the short rest. Honestly, it's kind of doubly messing with me because you've got what has changed since Val was here last. So let's dive right in. We're in Lunarum. Sometimes Lunarum, we call it Lunarum and Lunaris at different times, right?
Well, it's because Lunaris is your last name,
is the name,
and because the cities are based upon a royalty of a family's. This is a thing you will find in the city that is normal. You can say Lunaris, and mean the city, and you can say Lunarum and mean the family.
Copy. That's confusing, but
of course,
but in a believable way. Yes,
right. That's exactly what I mean. Like if this is the reality of that you live in, that would be a thing that would be 100%. Confusing, but people would have gotten used to over 300 years.
It leads to a lot of who's on first situations, I'm sure. No, just no, but that's the thing that's really messing with me is now that we're back here in this location, there are the things that have changed since Val was gone. So just changed through normal course of life.
Right.
And then potentially we have been told that other things about the timeline could have changed based on decisions that were made. That messes with me. And
of course.
I'm going to be like eyes like a hawk looking for that stuff. So perfect example, we got back and in the last 5-10 minutes of the episode when we finally got to Val's house, I'm going to be like chomping at the bit at the start of the episode this week. By the way, just a warning for everybody. We might have the fastest like top of show business ever because Morgan will be like, let's go.
Let's go.
I've been hanging on a cliff for a week. But Val's house. Oh gosh, don't say that, Daria. Either way, it's mostly you and your sister shaping Lunarum now. Oh boy, that's a lot of stress. And so the house is nicer, much nicer. It was very fast. I didn't get the chance to really, take in all of it, but I rolled well on that perception check. Didn't see the silo, which the silo crumbled during the storm that swept Val away. But so maybe it was just taken away. And the house.
Well, you also live in a city that has magic readily available.
Right.
So like things changing happens quickly.
Right. So yes, that's a very good point. Thank you for reminding me of that. And the house is in a much nicer state, but maybe that's because Vizzy, Val's sister, made that deal with the two jerks that we saw in the house or whatever. Maybe things are better. And so, and maybe in the months, or maybe we still don't know how long Val's been gone, really. Maybe in the months or whatever since then. Well, I'll just say months because that's a guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to know? Because you asked, and I would have given it to you.
I mean, okay. I want to know in story, and I
want for sure.
I want to know when Val knows. Don't tell me.
Got it. Makes sense.
Because that'll be fun for everybody
Mm-hmm.
to watch my brain leak out of my ears. I know what you like, you weirdos. I love you, community. You're the best. I'm here to give you what you want. But no. So listen, guilty as charged. Not Vale says yes, correct. So maybe, so maybe the things have just been made better through the normal course of life.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Vizzy did seem... I remember I had, such strong feelings from that session 0. Yes, we love to watch Morgan's reactions. I
was City Racing Girl. I was just talking to Morgan about this. One of the best things as the DM is being able to see, setting something up that is going to be a thing, but seeing your players react to it in a way, it's so inspiring. And it's like, it gives me chills every time. But that last moment on the cliffhanger, when you are disguised as Lucenzo, Lucky, you're disguised as a bad version of Lucky, right? Because you don't have the right accent. You can't remember exactly how he sounds. Val never really pays attention to things like that.
Yeah, it's true.
And you failed your perception check to hear in the door, but I was like, well, I don't want to punish him just because he had a bad roll. So I'll relate it in a way that is not explicit. But dude, watching you realize it, right? That thunk. And it's
there's getting only closer.
One, and you said it, dude. And you said it. It's like there's only one person I know that has a.
Yeah. That was. I was proud of myself for that moment. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, dude. I was proud of you in the moment. That was one. It was so fascinating to watch, and two, you got the hint. You got the very you failed the check, but you got the hint. And those are great moments. Man.
It was great. And the words ringing in my ears for the last week, which is you said that he looks like he's looking at a ghost. Yep. Which, I mean, could mean a million things. Again, it could mean because Val was swept away in that storm however long ago. So assuming that timeline is mostly in place and that didn't really change. Daria says, I imagine the last part of the disguise still showing when the door started opening. Right. It was going away from top down and I was still wearing his pants.
I like to think it was sort of like a fade transition from left to right. And it just happened to be right as the door opened from his viewpoint.
And Val does look a little different, but we've said it's obviously recognizably Val. He's just much shinier and
I mean, if you showed up in fancy clothing, all of a sudden people are gonna be like, oh, well, you look different, but you're still you.
This is that episode. This week's episode is when you know you're bracing for impact as the player, where it's like, okay, first hour is gonna be a lot. There's probably gonna be a lot that I learn quickly, and then it will just be kind of reacting, responding. What's the plan? And how do we react to these things? The text thread amongst the players has been very kind of all right, let's keep it on track. How do we? And I was we could, what is it? While man plans, God laughs, or anything like that.
Yeah,
any plan we make might get thrown out the window immediately.
Yeah, right.
And it still hits hard.
And that makes my job as the gods even more difficult, right? Because any plan that I make, I have some power of okay, the gods did this, so they would know that and plan for this. But some of it is also okay, I didn't plan.
I've talked about that a lot with Val, right? Where this part of this campaign has been, and who said it? Did Amelia say it? Where it was sort of there's so many gods, and it's and it's when you have been feeling so much we've kind of given up control in a lot of ways, or you've given up control in a capital C way. That for Val, it could have been very easy for Val to just become complacent and just go, you know, like, whatever I do, I'm just going to end up somewhere else. But it's so that's why it's important for us, the characters and the players, to keep our eye on the prize, keep our eye on, like, you know, what do we really care about? What's important to us? Keeping these people safe, but also, like, keeping that connection to your family and to your life before this. Like, what are you know? And this is, boy, oh my God, this is relatable as heck in 2023, in the noise of social media and politics and tragedy and war and strikes and everything, climate change, all of this stuff going on. You can just get lost in the noise and give up. It's very easy, and probably we've all done it for short periods of time. You know, whether you're doom scrolling or, you know, you're just vibing out. It honestly is. I have not thought this about our campaign until right now, but I'm feeling this in this moment because we have so much going on right now. There's so many tragedies befalling us right now, and it's such a strange and tragic time that you have to kind of keep your eye on what's important to you, and you have to fight and you have to protect it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's almost like there was some plans in this.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
I was thinking, you know, just the other day where it's appropriate that Val's class is a fighter. Because it's just keep fighting.
Yep.
Yeah,
man. Yep. Well, and it's and also, like, you know, some of it is the power adventurers, especially to the gods, and they even mentioned this. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 a little bit lately, just to and trying different things to see how they change the story and like, you know, all this different stuff.
When I finally dive in, that's kind of what I'm most looking forward to, is kind of the permutations and how things.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see, like, how much they base on, like, what's clearly the writer's experience.
Sure.
You know, like, even though you're in fantasy, the writer's experience is clearly coming through, right? And I find that, you know, Jared and I started this campaign with, like, you know what, we want to sort of use fantasy as a way to expose some of the things that we're frustrated about in life. Because one, that's how I deal with things. I don't know about you.
Sure.
Storytelling is how I sort of deal with this kind of stuff.
I mean, but also, or, like, it's probably not the only way, but you know,
of course,
it's a way that you can make things make sense or help crystallize your feelings on things.
Right.
You know? I mean, what I just said about, like, you know, to keep fighting and all of that has been something that I truly believe for a long time, but just you know, has been re-energized so many times in the past several months, years, whatever.
Yeah, man. Yep.
But you were saying, I'm sorry, that was
no, absolutely, it's relevant.
Yeah.
So, you know, when Jared and I first started this, that was sort of one of our goals, in addition to, like, using the backstories of the characters and going where they want to go. You know, a lot of existing in the reality in which we currently exist. For me, a god that we cannot really communicate with is an algorithm. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's, dude, like, it's a metaphor, but it's I think it's an
for sure.
So, you know, there's someone like, well, I have to appease this god, and I don't really know how. I wish I could talk to it. So, for me, it's that kind of stuff. And
you're saying the lesson of the Stormborn campaign is how to be a content creator and try to work with algorithms on social media platforms? No, I'm kidding.
We're just teaching people how to be a content creator.
Gross. I quit. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's much deeper than that, obviously. But, yes.
But
no, that's a very interesting comparison. Yeah.
And I've been, you know, I can't remember who I was talking to recently that I brought it up, where it's the Greek gods, and I think I've talked about this on previous cooldowns, like especially in season 1.
Sure.
But like the Roman Greek, just gods in general. I started with the Greek because that was the easiest to access when I was, you know, hiding in the library and not being social and living it and not going home and living at school so that I could learn. so the library was my friend, and it's where I like gathered so much information, really came in love to stories, because that's what I distracted myself with in life. It was Omar. I was talking to Omar at a party recently,
Yes.
and one of the things I identified
Omar
with Omar
Najam, we
was
love
like,
him.
yeah, Omar Najam. Yep, sorry. Love you, Omar.
The best.
The best. So I was talking to him and was like, going to the library, the easiest thing for me to get access on was the Greek and Roman gods, because that's historically where a lot of our academia comes from, is
Sure.
people passing that information on. But I would I lucked out in that our library was fairly new when I started high school. Like my high school had just been built. And so one of the things that I could do, especially when I was a freshman, was go into the library and say, hey, I want this book. Can we get this book? And they would have like lists that we can go. Awesome. And so I like went in and was like, I want Norse god information. I want Native American books on, or books on Native American gods and goddesses, Hindi and Buddhist, and all of these sort of different mythologies that exist in our actual world.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons was because I learned that through the Greek and Roman gods that we can relate to these stories, and why we continue to tell them is because it helps us understand that humans have been suffering with the same thing for thousands of years.
Right.
And that really helped me understand that, oh, wow, these gods have crappy parents and crappy parental situations, to be fair.
Right.
So I'm not alone. And that really gave me a lot of it helped me understand the world in a better way. Yeah. And then when I started opening up other, because high school for me was in near Augusta, Georgia, which is like the backwoods.
Yeah.
It's where they send a lot of military families to learn specific things, especially when they're going into wartime.
No.
And to play golf, for sure. Yes, and worked that a lot. That's sort of like a huge influx of economic money in that area.
Right.
But one of the reasons why the high school is being built. But so I didn't really have individuals I could talk to that understood what it meant to leave the country, let alone live overseas. And I'm trying to deal with, I'm moving from overseas to America at the age of 12 and not having any context. And I'm in the middle of Augusta and just going, what? This is all very different. It's a culture shock. I don't understand. And that was really helpful. The stories of gods and goddesses really helped me.
It's the value of so many stories, right? And it's movies and TV and video games and all this stuff, where it's finding stories that help you make sense of your own life. And the style of those stories is just kind of dependent on luck and timing and what's hot, or what's available to you in those ways, of anything like that. I mean, how many movies or kids movies have you watched nowadays where you're like, boy, if I'd seen that when I was 10, this would have been my world, or something like that. Things along that nature of things is really fascinating. Yeah, and that's always really interesting. And gods, you also get the kind of cultural, you get the sort of fun of the storytelling of it, but then you also get the cultural historical aspect, where it's like, boy, what the hell was going on in Scandinavia that this was there and said, these are the people in charge. You're like, what? Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Reading Eaters of the Dead, which is obviously a fictional story, but based a lot of that, was like, oh, okay.
Right.
There's a very distinct thing that goes about this. And what's it, the 13th Warrior? Is that what?
Yeah, that was the movie with Antonio Banderas. It's actually a very good movie. I haven't seen it in a few years.
It is. Yep.
And based on the Michael Crichton story, was Eaters of the Dead, right? Yes.
Yeah. And I thought it did very well for the book. Obviously very different, but it still captured that same essence. And it was just a fascinating look at oh, right. Because we don't get a whole lot of stories, on this side of the oceans, about that kind of cultural mix, right? Because they traveled. Like, Jerusalem was a place that Europeans went to long time ago.
Yep.
And China and Rome, a lot of those places had a lot of conflicts, but they also did a lot of trade. And throughout that thousands of years that they existed. So it's fascinating to me to read those stories.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a real, at least I believe, it gives you a real the realist window into a thing without actually experiencing it yourself. That's why we read, right? Like, I couldn't have been on the Titanic, but I could read about somebody who was and understand their viewpoint at the moment, to sort of place myself in that reality and understand things. But that's why I think reading and like research of any kind is so vital, even just so you get an understanding of what it's like to be there in the moment.
I love a good history podcast. I also, recent and ancient history. I've actually been enjoying more like recent history books and stuff like that recently. Anyway, okay, we're off on a major tangent. I want to get us back.
Of course,
I want to get us back to last week's episode and before this week's episode, because we have questions.
Yes.
We, the people. Well, probably the audience knows more than I do.
They do.
Tangents
they
are
do.
Good. Yes, they absolutely are. But here,
there was one thing I wanted to mention that Not a Crit Fail said earlier.
Go ahead.
And they asked, so I figured I would.
Sure.
First, they love the secrets, the S.E.E.C.R.E.T. Great and unique kind of gifts to give your players. I cannot wait to see how they pan out. So exciting. Absolutely. I believe I'm excited about that too. And if things were changed by something the party did, does that technically make it a different timeline since things were changed? I don't know. It's late. LOL. So, Ron cannot know the future. Therefore, the gods that he creates cannot truly know the future. But sort of what I think Not a Crit Fail, what I've sort of was explaining and sort of revealing is that their choices in this moment will be the last timeline, no matter what they are, because it's their choices. Okay. So that's the design of it, right? Like what the players make in certain their choices, that is the last timeline. So everything they experience since they talked to Sosezaraz until some future date, depending on what they do, will be, this is the last timeline. This is these situations actually occurred and they become a convergence. Yeah. No pressure, Morgan says. That was the whole reason. Yeah, that was the whole reason of introducing the convergences and all of that kind of stuff, is to identify, like, I get it's crazy that there's all these other timelines, but you need, as humans, something that indicates this is the timeline. And I do that. No, I wanted to. One of my questions, obviously without giving anything away to me, was about the secrets specifically. And by the way, they pointed out that both the secrets, the all caps secret acronym and the Owl Shards acronym, it's so much fun. There was, it's so much. Having been a show lucky enough to be on for almost 4 years now. No, over 4 years. I'm sorry, almost 5 years. Good Lord. Yeah, almost 5. Yeah, dude. Is we have so many new viewers to the show, and then we have the OGs who have been here since the beginning, and it's so much fun to have things like, Lord Arabet, the Keeper of Secrets, really likes acronyms, to be just sort of funny and amusing to people watching the show in the present without all of the context of that. But like there was so much that was just Morgan was enjoying on another level. Which is, we've done our best to give all of the players who weren't there for campaign 1 like a crash course on so many things. But it was really kind of fascinating to see everybody learning as we go, and the question about, like, wait, so this Keeper of Secrets, what is he? What does he look like? Who are they? And I'm like, boy. I did warn. The only thing that I warned the cast about the Keeper of Secrets, I was like, if they're showing up like literally the keeper of some of the biggest secrets in the universe,
I was like, just referred back to the episode of Campaign 1 where we spent almost 4 hours just like getting our minds blown and then trying to come to a decision of what the heck we were going to do. Yes, yeah. Some of my favorite moments, and all the stuff with Lord Ereband towards the end of Campaign 1 is mind-blowing. So I loved seeing Emilio as their representative.
And look, I'm DMing this one, but so much of this is just inspired by Jeff, right? Like Jeff inspired
and Zand.
And Zand, right?
Yes,
like the people that we worked with, and you guys inspire me all the time. So like, I'm just trying to pay that back to the show, and like, hey, this has inspired me, so it makes sense to do this. So
no, it's so much fun. And it's so fun seeing everybody kind of take in the information in different ways, you know, as I said, like new fans of the show or fans that have been around since the beginning, kind of seeing all the different like things that people get caught on to. It's incredible. So what I wanted to ask specifically about the secrets was, were each of these secrets, as best you can answer this without spoiling anything, were each of the secrets pre-existing in the space, or were any that needed to be create specifically for this purpose? I would believe Val's secret you guys knew about from day one. I could be wrong about that, and don't tell me if I am, honestly.
I won't.
This petty pace, I love your name, by the way. I'm all about Macbeth references. So yeah, if you want to talk about that a little bit, where it was like how you came to the decision of what secret to reveal to people, what you talked about, like, and what why you revealed this one to that person, you know, who you chose to see each secret, blah 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 blah. But yes, so yeah, please, Ron, to enlighten us a little bit.
So the secrets, you know, I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them were already sort of known, or had, you know, already been thought of, and were
already known
sort of
by
kept
you.
to the side. Already known by me, right? Yeah.
Right.
That were sort of set aside.
The audience didn't know my secret, did they?
No.
Okay.
They shouldn't.
I was going to say, I don't know when they would have.
No indication. No, there's no indication at all that we would have ever given that.
All right.
But some of them are also specific to, you know, here's the thing: secrets, right? And I mean the acronym secrets.
Yeah.
Are and you know, it's a metaphor, and it works. Secrets are powerful, man.
Yes.
Right? They give people power. Secrets give people power. Blackmail is a crime that gives people power over others. That's why it's a crime, is because it can be abused. Secrets are powerful.
They give power, but they also take power too.
Yeah.
And I tried to call that out as Val a little bit, where I was kind of like, it really is that great dungeon run dilemmas of and where I said I wanted to say, or I'm like, what if in order to, you know, do something about this, I have to share this secret with my friends, then I'll lose that power. And it's like, all right, then these things have a price for sure.
Exactly. So these things, and look, I wholly expect you all to give up some of these secrets. I wholly expect it.
Yeah.
Because they're too powerful not. And what you can do with them is pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like I've indicated to you that, like, it's like taking a nuke, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting somebody who's got a bunch of nukes in terms of like blowing up a timeline, right? Like literally can just do whatever they want. And and the secret and the secret keeper's assistant and Zozezaraz are working together, going like, Zozezaraz, I've got, you know, Zozezaraz, I think if you watch over the lifetime of Zozezaraz, he starts off very, especially when Jared and I were doing it together, he starts off very like, I am your creator, you should just listen to me. And it becomes very clear that the creator is not as all powerful as they once believed themselves to be.
Sure.
And things are so corrupted that even they, the creator of the universe, is having issue.
Right.
it scares Zozezaraz. It should absolutely terrify anyone who has that knowledge, right?
Jeez.
Because you're talking about the creator of the universe has lost some control.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I think about that, existential dread.
No, that's
right?
the fact that Zozezaraz knew so much and that there were legit things that they were like, yeah, I don't know about that. It's like, what do you mean
Correct.
you don't know?
What do you mean you don't know about that? It's you. Yeah. Exactly.
Which
so,
I'm going to get to that in just a second, because I think I hit on some of it when there was a very clear moment last episode where I brought up something that shocked Emilio, right? But let me get to that in a second, because I wanted to ask chat just for fun, without giving anything away. Please don't. I don't want to know the secrets. I want people in chat to say which of the secrets blew their mind the most. Just say a character name of which one blew your mind the most, because I'm curious in terms of the scale. Of course, my Dungeon Speedrun just says yes. I assume that's a vote for all 5. Got it. Okay, because I was like trying to gauge scale. It's like, were they all as massive, or was literally Otto's secret like a recipe for oatmeal? Tapardo says Otto and Rhea were the most for me. Tuomask says Otto or Coco. I wouldn't be shocked if Coco's was massive. Tuomask says Rhea, maybe. Interesting. City Racing Girl says Otto. Interesting. All right. Maybe Rhea, says City Racing Girl. Okay.
Here's the thing. Some of the secrets are also not necessarily super explicit, because you only getting a visual, right? Just like yours.
That was honestly a little shocking to me, was how explicit mine was, where it was like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed crystal clear, like what it was.
But you got no sound, right? You don't know. You didn't hear any. You didn't hear what anyone said.
Tuomask says Val can just spill his secret, no biggie. Yeah, mine's no big deal. Easy for you to say.
Val will blab first.
Val will blab first.
Daria, not Daria.
That's not a bad bet. Because not only because of where we are, like what we're dealing with, and also just Val being Val. Daria, that is not a bad bet that Val will blab first.
So you know what you're up against, right? You know what you're up against. You saw the level of corruption that is possible with the Fetid Father through your visions. You know that it's so bad that the astral dragon is having trouble, and so like any last ditch effort might be, you've got to have you got to have power, you got to have a weapon, you got to have something that can disrupt what has now become the status quo, and that's what your secrets are. They're literal bombs, man. They're literal in your hands. I say in your hands because you're not carrying them around, but they're literal. Like these grenades are essentially grenades, that you can pull out and use however you wish.
Right.
It's up to you. You're given the power. It's your secret to share, but be careful what you do with it.
Yep.
Which is what he said at the end, right? It's the last thing he said is like, well, now that you realize that you have this powerful secret, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Right. Jeez. Yeah, that was.
I love this, because it puts the onus on the cast, and I get to respond.
Of course you love it, you sick. You sicko.
Well, you guys, what you decide to do with them, what you decide to do, period, always inspires me so greatly.
Thank you.
So doing this is just going to be like, now you have the secret, the things that you wanted to know.
These are 5 little chaos engines that you just introduced. You're like, here knows what happens.
Here you go. I don't know what's going to happen.
Tuomask, C-Tech Astronomy is one of my all-time favorite references. Thank you. And if you don't know what C-Tech Astronomy means, too bad. That's part of the joke. C-Tech Astronomy is legit from one of my favorite movies of all time. Yes, that's all. So Google it. You'll figure it out. Whatever. And it's very apropos to this. Jeez. Okay, so... okay. You know what else? So, yeah, going back to... Daria says, I have Google and I know how to use it. Yes, for sure. But, okay, going back to the moment where I called out to Emilio, I believe, right? To Emilio when I said, wait, we saw at least an attempt to devour the god of magic. That's what happened in At All Costs at the end of chapter 2. Or at least that seems to have been the grand scheme behind that, whatever the heck was going on there.
Yep.
That was a surprise to Emilio. Yes. Yeah, we were talking to Emilio at that point.
Yeah, he didn't know that.
I need to go back and rewatch that very end of that moment because yeah, I was like, wait a minute, no, I know something like that happened. I just need to remember all the specifics because it was a couple months ago now. But I mean, for the characters, it was literally like less than a day. And yeah, man. So the fact that was, if the Fetid Father has, unbeknownst to the other gods, usurped a god onto their own.
Worse than usurped, right? Worse than usurped.
Yeah, literally like eaten
consumed.
It. Right. Consumed. Then that probably, at least in my rationale, probably explains why the other gods are having problems tracking them, seeing them. You slurped, dungeon speed run. Ooh,
you slurped.
I love it. You slurped,
and they.
That's
told
some
this
good god.
Times, right? You've been told this fairly a few number of times that the gods have trouble seeing this entity. They didn't even know what the entity was until y'all were like, no, it's this thing.
Right.
So yeah.
Daria says saying C-Tech Astronomy instead of Too Many Secrets is like ordering a Cuba Libre instead of a rum and coke. yeah, we like to be fancy around here.
Yeah. Cuba Libre sounds way better than rum and coke.
Don't yuck our yum. And ordering a martini is fancier than saying just give me a pot of vodka.
Or gin, if you like gin.
I was going to say, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. It was like, we were talking about how old school cocktails are literally just straight gin or vodka and a tiny bit of something or other.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, that's true.
To make it taste slightly less like rum or vodka.
A gimlet is literally just 4 ounces of vodka and a little bit of lime juice.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, it's lime juice, right? Yep, pretty much. Anyway, we like to be fancy and give things fancy names to make us sound like less of the monsters that we really are.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, people are like, if I told you, hey, this has a bunch of vodka in it, or if I told you, hey, this is a gimlet.
Ooh, gimlet.
What's going to inspire you more?
Charismatic name. I'll try a gimlet.
Exactly. It's also why naming your children is so important.
Okay. Interesting swerve. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's giving names to things
sure.
gives them power.
Yes. That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah.
Again,
just relating into what we're dealing with. That's all.
Kid number 1 and kid number 2. That's right. You want them to be as powerless as possible to obey.
Yeah, as powerless as possible.
Correct. Keep them in their place. Yeah. It's number 1. This is number 2.
Stop calling them kid. Just name them thing number 1 and thing number 2.
That's right.
Then they can relate to the story.
Oh man, but okay, so it seems to have been quite a surprise that the Fetid Father may have usurped the god of magic. We obviously don't seem to know all that might mean, but that just sounds bad. I'll just say from Morgan's point of view, sounds real bad.
I think there's still some confusion, and rightly so, and I'm glad that there is, about the relationship to Thasha and her children or pieces, and then also the raw elementals, which you've only heard of like a handful of times.
Right.
And only from the gods ever.
Yeesh. Yeah, so Thasha seems to have less sway here in Mechas. But actually, I mean, like, let's talk about this, like, in terms of the gods that are a little more prevalent here in Mechas. Yeah. Though, as we know, the history of mageocracies is rife with people having a real problem with gods. So, like, the stronger wizards get, the more they tend to just not care what gods think. Who knew?
You also have a third of the city that's Gith.
Right.
And the Gith are very intellectual, very astrally driven,
right?
Not, divinely driven,
right?
Yeah,
that's right. Nithzir,
Now, granted, you also have to
is
remember
still
that
in place back in the City of Glass, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
As far as you know, that was what was sort of indicated to
It was
you.
Gonzalo and Nithzir were left as the two governors.
Yep.
Okay.
And
but Nithzir was thrown out of court. That's right.
Yes.
We knew. Boy,
Yep.
Boy, my memory ain't bad sometimes, folks.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Also, there was something I wanted to say. Oh, so they're astrally driven, but we've also indicated to you that there is a divine aspect of the astral plane.
We know that now.
So
sure.
you know, like,
do they
may
know
not necessarily exactly. That's the question, right? Do they know about it?
That's a
is it
really interesting point. If we walk up to Cosmolag, the Gith house, and basically say, "Yo, we're cool with Zozezaraz," we might.
Does that mean anything?
We might get the key to the city. They might not know what the heck we're talking about.
Correct.
But yeah, because Zozezaraz is pretty mysterious. But yeah.
And the Gith are also pretty secretive themselves, just generally, right? They are just because they come from the astral plane. Yeah, absolutely. And amongst each other, in fact. Again, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate.
But are there any other gods that are sort of revered on Mechas that is Magus, for instance, a revered god of Mechas? I mean, I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there's also a god called Mechas.
Right.
And they're definitely revered in Mechas since the city is named after them.
What are they?
And definitely would be technology.
Oh, don't they in Lumbra have a little bit of? Do they work well together, or do they not get along?
No real. You would know that probably would change now because of the events that happened in the City of Glass, and since it's made a convergence, it changes what the previous relationship between those two gods were.
That might be Dungeon Speedrun says Windows/Mac. Yeah. Lumbra's Mac and Mechas is PC.
Windows.
I'm PC and I'm Mac. Justin Long is now playing Lumbra in my head. And what's his name?
Great question to a mask. Is progress versus technology? Is more tech always progress?
Good question.
Great question. One of the very foundational things that Jared and I talked about when we first started this campaign.
What is progress?
One of the very tech. Yeah, we're right. What is progress? What is that? Does it always mean advanced technology? Does it what is progress?
Now that Gast is walking around with us all the time, I mean, maybe we just need to roll up to a Church of Mechas and go like, "Yo, give us everything."
Yo.
Yeah. Boy, actually, wow, that's an interesting. Morgan's hatching another angle that we could try to pursue is going to a Church of Magus. Or, a place where Magus is revered, and basically going like, "Hey, you heard from your boy lately?" Well, because if that did happen, that happened 300 years ago, or almost 300 years ago.
Yep.
A while ago.
Yep.
So maybe
interesting if there were still churches.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But Magus is known. But Magus is a known part of the Pantheon.
As far as you know, as far as Val is concerned, Magus is a revered god within the city.
Oh boy, that's one of the things that's been changed massively, isn't it? Oh, well, that would make sense. If Magus has been completely wiped away for centuries. Oh my god.
Oh no.
Oh,
yeah, there's a lot. There's
things are gonna change.
A lot for sure.
Oh god.
Yep.
Too much.
I also love that there are the concept of passive perception checks. I've been relying on them more.
Good.
Unless you guys say specifically, I'm looking for this thing.
As a DM, I approve. I like using passive scores more when I have to, because it's also people talk about this where, as a DM, you have to be careful hiding too much behind rolls, because sometimes you just need your people to know stuff.
Exactly what, again, it would have been a disaster for you to roll up as Lucenzo and then drop your into Val.
Yeah. You
But to
just
what the
hear something. Yeah, that was
from
right.
Lucenzo's point of view, if that happened, he opens the door, it's you,
Yeah.
himself, and then you turn into Val.
Yeah.
You are not someone I can trust.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the situation would be very different. So that, yes, that was where, one, I gave you a role, but I did not hide the thing that you needed to know behind it. I just sort of obfuscated it slightly, but
Yeah.
you were smart enough to pick up on it and move with it. So yeah.
We have to go soon, but there was
Yeah, we do.
I see Dungeon Speedrun said, didn't one of the canon D&D devils take over another god's portfolio without her followers noticing? Think there's precedent. I absolutely no, I think there's several precedents of people ascending and taking over, usurping godhood.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
I mean,
there's even a theory
big deal.
on TikTok. Yeah, there's a theory on TikTok that it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I think it's hilarious, where someone is trying to argue that the Christian God is just Loki. Yeah,
Whoa.
it's a whole fascinating.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly
Whoa.
you have to be able to you have to be able to like look inwardly to listen to that without getting offended.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's be careful what company we're in when we say
for
things
sure.
like that.
Of course. Again, I'm not saying I contribute or believe the reality. I just think it's fascinating.
I'm down to go down that crazy rabbit hole for a little while.
Of course.
Yeah,
man. Of
but
course,
that's
it's
implying that the Norse gods are more real than whatever. I mean,
exactly. Like, that's the part that I find the most fascinating, is like, you have to really buy into that the Norse gods are the real gods.
Yeah. So
which is just interesting.
2O Mass asked, and I know, because I get asked this a lot actually by the other players. I think they're constantly trying to figure out what Val's feelings are for Strix, and it's a very good question. And so 2O Mass asked, does Val have any feelings for Strix left at all? Yeah, of course he does. But it's also not, and I specifically didn't really want it to be a pining relationship situation. I think Val cares about her, just like you, I would hope, care about people from your past and not want them to come to harm, even if you know, like an ex who, we're not friends, but if something happened to her, I would care,
Yeah, for sure.
especially if it was kind of my fault. Of course I would care.
Of course.
I think Val lumps and ties Strix into this feeling that he had and has been dealing with for a long time, which is like, I've moved on from the person that I was, that screwed up a lot, basically, and made all those bad decisions. I'm sorry if I hurt her, but also, like, it was, I kind of saw where I lived in her mind, and Daria says, you are her lobster, Val. Don't let her go. Oh, I was gonna say, this is where things are at for Val right now. Could that change? Absolutely, they could. And he does care, certainly, about what's going on with her, and he does want to make sure she's all right. I don't know. But literally, it's not kind of a. I specifically didn't want it to be like a long lost love to fix type of situation, because I was like, I don't know, man, when you go through sort of a blowing up your life like he did, sometimes you just want to clean the slate and move on as best you can. Yeah. But it's not saying I wish her any ill will. So it's that complicated thing where he cares about her, and maybe he does want her to see that he's better now. But not in a Pretty Woman, big mistake, huge, like not in that way. I think Val's a little more, I like trying to be a little more adjusted than that. So yeah, that's the situation with Strix is complicated, obviously, because it's kind of like, look, I want her to be okay. My first instinct will certainly not to rush and sweep her up into my arms and dip her for a kiss or anything like that, because she is also kind of tied into a dark period of his life, and
it's very clear from her, the little amount of that you've seen of Strix's choices. Clearly they want something, because if you roll into town and literally a couple of minutes later when they're strolling up asking for you, like, they clearly want there's something they care about.
Yeah, Daria's calling that out too. She cares for Val deeply. She tracked him down and Misty stepped into his house. This is true. That literally. That, one of my clear memories from my session 0 was, I really don't want to deal with her right now. And she's like, I am not waiting. And it was like,
you're gonna deal with me. You're gonna deal with me right now.
Come on, man. I'm
man.
Dealing with a lot.
Well, that's it. Is right. Like, I just think that's a reality that would exist. Given the situation that happened, right? And it's, to me, that's narratively interesting.
Sure. I don't know.
Not allowing you to avoid it.
Yeah, and I don't know. But you're right.
But
I mean, you just
but
called
you
it out.
Did avoid it,
and I thought the same thing. I mean, did I? I thought this, but with some help from Thasha.
Yeah.
But we did sort of. You did call it out, and I've had the same thing too, where it was like, it was obvious that she really wanted to talk to him about something, and what that wasn't. I mean, it might have been revealed in those moments before it all went down, but maybe not. I don't know. Nope. So,
but she also wasn't alone, right? She didn't show up alone in secret. There were people watching her, and they were very protective, She was engaged to be married. It seemed like her wedding was imminent. Which, again, as Val said at the time, hope you're happy. Good luck. Yeah. So there's a lot of, like, especially if you're going back to the same place that you think you're going back to, and you've been gone a certain amount of time, depending on how long you've been gone. There are people who, have knowledge of some things that went down in the past that didn't have answers to certain things. And you showing up gives them an opportunity to get some answers. Okay. So,
yep, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Anyway,
I'll leave it with that.
Is it Wednesday yet? Let's go. Loved ones, I gotta run. This was so good. Ron, you and I could do this for hours and hours. But we love you, friends. Thank you so much for joining us here in chat. Thank you for all your wonderful questions and comments. It's so lovely to spend this time with you guys. I hope you're having a good week. Take care of yourselves. As I was saying earlier, it is really it's a dark time out here right now, and so hold your friends close. I'm always grateful for you guys.
Yes,
so
we are.
Thank you. Love you.
Also, yes. Patreon members, thank you so much, as always.
Yes, patreon.com/thedungeonrun. Thank you. I will say the patrons, as I said on the Discord, got an early look at. We finally got JD Illustrates' Hono art from Broken Ring. You're gonna see the rest. Everybody will see it soon. The Hono art is maybe the best thing JD Illustrates has ever done for us. I mean,
I agree. Completely.
Agree. I mean, he's done so much incredible art. The Hono art is nuts. It is so good. Mind-bogglingly good. I told him as much. I was like, I think this might be my favorite that you've ever done. Yeah, it's incredible. All right, we love you, friends. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you real soon. Tomorrow night, don't miss it live, because, like I said, I'm gonna be charging through. like, don't say another word. Let's go.
I gotta get ready.
We love you guys, though. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. Last but not least, humankind. Be both.
Be both.
Bye, friends.